Someone capture a shadow person on camera lurking over their bed. This video comes from Carrie E on YouTube, who noticed something terrifying on her home smart camera. Clearly, there's this dark black shape standing in the corner of the room. And, at first I didn't really think much of this. I mean, it's not hard to put on some dark clothes and lurk in a corner, but then it moves, and that's when you notice just how unnatural this thing really is. It zips across the room so fast, and in such a smooth, unnatural motion. This is clearly not a person. On top of that, watch how blurry it becomes. It doesn't look like a solid mass anymore. If you've ever had sleep paralysis and felt like something was standing over you or sitting on your chest and restricting your breathing, well, this video probably ain't gonna help you sleep any better, so sorry about that. Did you ever have an imaginary friend growing up? Do you have pleasant memories of said imaginary friend? Well, this next story may make you look back on your childhood a little differently. This photo here was shared online years ago. It looks pretty innocuous, two kids playing, but the thing is, there was only one youngster present at the time. At least that's what the parents thought. They were watching their son playing in the living room, saying he was talking with his imaginary friend Pauline. Dad snapped a picture, and when they looked back at it, they nearly screamed. Something else was clearly in the room, at least the camera picked something up. And the closer you look at this mysterious figure, the creepier it becomes. The eyes, the smile. Not only does it look unnatural, it has this air of aggression about it. Pretty creepy photo. So this happened back in January in Texas, just outside of Dallas. Two homeowners were left terrified after someone showed up at their house wearing a red satanic mask and holding a cardboard sign that said Revelation 21:15. If you know that Bible passage, it's all about the apocalypse, judgment day, that kind of thing. So the devil mask is bad enough, but it's really not the message you want showing up right on your front porch. The whole thing was caught on their doorbell camera. It happened around 8 p.m. on a Saturday. You could see the person dressed in all black standing there a few feet from the door, completely still. They ring the doorbell, wait a few seconds, then knock, and when no one answers, they just walk around the side of the house and stand there in the driveway, still holding the sign. The homeowners were not home at the time. They'd gone out to dinner, but they saw the footage later and they freaked out. "I'm scared," the homeowner told CBS. "I'm scared to leave the house. I'm scared to be at the house." She also said, "It's about the end times. It's about Judgment Day. I freaked out." Police looked into it and said the masked person hadn't been seen at any other homes in the area and technically didn't commit a crime. Still, they said they'd keep an eye on the neighborhood just in case. And a little message to viewers here, probably not the best idea to knock on some random person's door wearing a devil mask in Texas. Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyway, just what kind of animal are we looking at here? According to the uploader, it wasn't an animal, at least not one he'd ever seen. Reddit user Corrine James posted the image along with a description reading, "EMT friend saw this 2 nights ago, turning his ambulance around at the end of a rural road. It was swaying and its eyes were glowing without the headlights. This was in central Kentucky." Now, interesting thing about Kentucky, it's the home of the Pope Lick monster, aka Goat Man. So a terrifying part man, part goat hybrid with glowing red eyes. I don't know, am I drawing the wrong connections here? Am I crying? I don't know, but what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. All right, so this video comes from a TikToker named Anelli_RG. Her actual name is Mariana. She took the footage at her church in Mexico. According to her, she always felt a strange, unsettling vibe whenever she was there. Nothing specific she could point to, just a general sense that something wasn't right. So one day she decided to record during Mass to see if she could capture anything unusual on camera, and she did. When she reviewed the footage, she noticed someone or something that she doesn't remember seeing in person at all. It stands out immediately. In her description, she said, "It wasn't a human, and honestly, it's hard to disagree. The figure looks pale with dark, almost hollow eyes, almost like some lifeless mask." It's not just a case of bad camera quality either. Everyone else in the shot looks completely normal. So what's going on with this ghoulish looking figure? What would you do if you were working overnight security and saw this person show up on your surveillance camera? I say person, but I mean look at her, it looks more like a zombie to me. So, a school in Mexico, this security guard was on an overnight shift when he looked at the surveillance camera by the entrance of the building and saw this unsettling looking person staring up at the camera trying to get inside. The glowing eyes, the unusually long looking arms, this is not what I would want to see trying to break into my workplace in the middle of the night. Again, I'd think a zombie invasion was breaking out. This image was posted to Reddit by Dystopia321, who wrote, "This is a camera set up in the woods. Set up to take photos when it senses movement. Main purpose is to take photos of deer and other wildlife. There were no people that could be in the woods at the time, and it had to have been moving to set off the camera. What is this?" Well, I can't say exactly what it is, but I can say it doesn't look good. A rake, a skinwalker, wendigo, golem. All possible identities mentioned in the comments, and I don't know, those seem like good guesses to me. What a horrifying looking creature. Could it be some extra tall, thin, pale person skulking through the forest alone in the middle of the night? Sure. But that's not really a comforting thought either, is it? What do you all think of this one? This one legitimately gave me chills, because it took me a few seconds staring at the image before I saw it, but when I did, yeah, just no thank you. Reddit user OrangeFood87 shared the picture saying that back in 2012, their roommate received the image from her boyfriend. He was working at a body shop after hours and snapped a photo of this totaled car that had just been brought into the shop. He was alone at the time and didn't see the eerie figure until he looked back at the photo. Apparently, he closed up early that night, and I can't say I blame him. This picture was taken at the South Pittsburgh Hospital by Reddit user JustOkayAtLife, who wrote, "Taken in the second-story shadow hall where they report a 7-foot-tall shadow figure. This was taken at the end of the night. There was one other guy with me, and he was in front of me to the left. He had the flashlight, so there's no way this shadow was either of ours. If you have a chance and you happen to be in Tennessee, I highly recommend visiting this place. Earlier in the night, I was walking down a dark hallway alone on the first floor, and from the left side of me, there was a doorway where I heard a hissing sound shoot out of one of the rooms, moving towards me. It was an incredible experience. Incredible experience, that's one way of putting it. Our final clip today comes from Saudi Arabia. YouTuber Adventures Jassim79 was doing what he does best, exploring a creepy abandoned place. This time he was walking through an old rundown house, and when he got to the roof, he caught something incredibly chilling on camera. As he passes by a clothesline, through a small opening between sheets, this ghoulish face with pure black eyes appears. Just as fast as it shows up though, it thankfully vanishes. Yeah, I'd be praying too if I saw that face poking out at me. Seeing as this is in Saudi Arabia, many viewers have commented that this could be more than just a ghost, but a jinn. Spirit-like beings from Muslim tradition that can be invisible, shapeshift, and sometimes exhibit a more classical kind of demonic behavior, tormenting people or in some cases, even possessing them. Genuine or not though, it's a pretty creepy video. Buckland Abbey is a 700-year-old house. It was built on the site of a former abbey, which was sold to Sir Francis Drake after he returned from his circumnavigation of the globe in 1580. But while Francis was a national hero, locals believed that he had only defeated the Spanish Armada because he'd made a pact with the devil. Sir Francis Drake's ghost is believed to ride across Dartmoor in a black coach driven by headless horses led by 12 chattering goblins and pursued by a pack of baying dogs. That is the most metal thing I've ever heard. But it's also kind of terrifying. It's also said that any living dog that hears the spectral hound is said to die instantly. So that's kind of sad. I'd veer away from this place if you have a dog. Egg Hill Church is one of the most haunted churches out there. Legend has it that the crazy pastor of the Egg Hill Church ended the lives of all of his parishioners post-communion, and soon after hanged himself and died as well. Because of this, visitors have reported hearing the cries of victims that died at the hands of the pastor, even though the building remains locked and empty. That wasn't enough. Word has it that the abandoned church and its premises are vandalized and haunted by ghosts. But the interesting thing is, Egg Hill Church did reportedly bear witness to a strange miracle. According to a story, a tornado struck the area during a camp meeting near the church, damaging trees and snapping branches all around. But the tents and the trees at the camp remained intact as people kneeled and prayed during the storm. So could these spirits who are locked inside the church have helped these folks? Who knows? Located in the French Quarter of New Orleans, St. Louis Cathedral is the oldest cathedral in the United States still in use. The first version was constructed in 1718, and the final version of the cathedral was completed in the 1850s. Because of this long history, St. Louis Cathedral has become home to a number of spirits. One of the most famous ghosts to haunt the cathedral is Pierre Antoine, who served there as a priest from 1774 until his death in 1829. Pierre Antoine famously baptized Mary Laveau, the voodoo queen of New Orleans, and later performed the marriage to her first husband. Antoine's spirit has been seen walking through an alleyway outside the church, named after him, while quietly singing and looking in through the stained glass windows. Other ghosts include Pierre Antoine's predecessor, Pierre Dagobert, the pirate John Lafitte, and even the infamous Delphine Lalaurie. So if you ever go to this church, be prepared to see like a ghost or two. St. Mary's Episcopal Church, Kansas City. Father Henry David Jardine, a controversial Episcopal priest, is believed to haunt his former congregation at St. Mary's Episcopal Church. Henry came to the church in 1879, when it was still St. Luke's mission. He caused controversy by introducing Catholic practices, and there was speculation about him having a troubled past. In 1886, Henry died in St. Louis from an apparent chloroform overdose, which the Episcopal Church ultimately deemed was because of him taking his own life. Because of this, he could not be buried at St. Mary's as he'd intended, and the years since his death, visitors have smelled incense where there is none, and seen a ghostly figure thought to be him looking out one of the second floor windows. During one paranormal investigation, an electromagnetic field detector went off near the altar, and the apparition of a priest was caught on film. In the year 2000, Jardine's body was moved to St. Mary's, and his final resting place now sits below the church's altar, and you'd think he'd stop showing himself around the church, but he hasn't. Constructed between 1882 and 1885, Most Holy Trinity Church in Brooklyn, along with its adjoining school and rectory, is believed to be extremely haunted. In 1897, church sexton George Stells was a victim of homicide in the church, but the criminal was never caught. Since then, a bloody handprint has occasionally appeared on the wall leading up to the bell tower, which is kinda cool. The school was built in 1887 on the site of the church's graveyard, although all the bodies were said to have been moved to a different location. Ghostly activity makes some suspect that a few bodies remain beneath the school. Yeah, building on top of a graveyard, I don't think that's ever worked out well for people. Always hear creepy stuff happening after that. People have seen lights in the gymnasium turn on and off by themselves for years, and heard footsteps when the gym is completely empty. The rectory is also the site of paranormal activity. The bedroom formerly used by Monsignor Michael May, who died in 1895, is rarely used because of his ghost making noises in the room throughout the night. Dogs visiting the rectory have also been known to stare at the main staircase, even though it doesn't appear that anyone is there. But at least they don't drop dead instantly like before. The construction of St. Bartholomew the Great Church began in 1120. Located in what is now West Smithfield, a monk and Norman courtier named Raher was responsible for receiving land and funds from King Henry I to build the church. There's a lot of history contained in St. Bart's, including some stories that are particularly dark. A number of homicides and executions took place on the grounds of the church, including the burning of heretics. And today, several resident ghosts and unnamed entities reside within the church walls. The Duke of Argyll, the painter William Hogarth, and the apparition of a priest have been seen in the church. There's also a white mist that appears in the center aisle of St. Bart's, and some reports indicate the mist forms into the shape of a woman. The positive energy is countered by a black mist that is also seen in the church and is thought to be residual negative energy of all the violence seen at St. Bart's. The church's most famous ghost, though, is Raher himself. The monk has been seen wandering the church, supposedly looking for his foot, which was allegedly stolen from his crypt centuries after his death. Why would someone take a foot? Give that back. That is not nice. Don't steal dead people's feet. It's also said that his ghost appears on the first day of every July at 7 a.m., so that's something. In 1918, a young woman was seen pacing the steps of the First Church of Christ Scientist, located at the corner of 3rd and Ormsby in Louisville, Kentucky. More than a century later, it said her ghost is still seen, pacing and sobbing during the night. This ghost is known as the Lady of the Stairs, or Miss G, which I love. It's believed that Miss G was a member of the prominent Gothrite family, and that her parents attempted to marry her to a much older man after she graduated from high school. But Miss G had already fallen in love with a young man who is currently fighting in World War I. After the war, the soldier, who is believed to be Herbert Fulton Dixon, returned to Louisville, and the young couple planned to leave town and get married in Chicago. That night, the night they were to leave, Miss G went to the steps of the First Church of Christ Scientist, where she and Dixon regularly met. Sadly, Dixon never showed up, and passerby saw a distressed Miss G pacing the steps of the church. As it turned out, Dixon had come down with the Spanish flu and was unable to make it to the church, but the news never made it to Miss G. In a matter of days, both Dixon and Miss G had died from the flu. Miss G's spirit has been seen on the church steps ever since. Sad. It was a sad world before cell phones, right? I got the flu, can't show up, please go home, get out of the cold. As the largest Gothic cathedral in Northern Europe, the stunning York Minster is believed to date back to 627 AD. With a church that old, there are a number of hauntings associated with the church. One of the most famous is that during the 1820s, two ladies from a tour group going around the church found themselves separated and wandering around the building. They encountered a man in a naval uniform who approached one of the women and whispered in her ear. The story goes that he was the woman's brother, who had died at sea. The siblings had made a pact that whoever died first was to come back and tell the other if the afterlife existed. Another apparition said to haunt the York Minster is Dean Gale, who died in 1702, aged 26. He reportedly enjoys sitting in the pews and listening to the sermons. You know, they sound like friendly ghosts, which is, alright. The Snaggov Monastery in Romania. This island-bound church, the Snaggov Monastery, seems perfect, but has a dark side. The church is the final resting place for one of the most notorious and bloodthirsty rulers of all time. Founded back in the 14th century, more than just one church has stood upon this island. The original wooden structure was doomed, eventually sinking into the surrounding lake, causing locals to believe the island was cursed. Eventually, this island was to become the resting place for, ladies and gentlemen, Vlad Tepes, better known as Vlad the Impaler, the real-life inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula. Vlad is said to be buried at the entrance to the church. There is a belief that Vlad had committed more atrocities in his life than any individual ever should, so he was placed at the church's entry so that anyone walking over his grave would have to take some of his sins upon themselves, which doesn't seem fair. There remains some mystery and debate whether Vlad is actually even buried at the church, but the monastery is still said to have ties to Vlad regardless, who had fortifications surrounding the island and a jail and torture chamber on the island itself. In a remote part of South Australia lies an artificial ghost town known as Old Talem Town. This attraction consists of many buildings, most of which are over 100 years old, that had been abandoned and then relocated to this town. There's a massive mix of history and dark events tied to many of these buildings, and some of them are considered to be, of course, haunted. One of the buildings that has gained a reputation for being possibly the most haunted building in Old Talem Town is its church. The Wolseley Methodist Church is feared as countless visitors to the building have claimed to have weird experiences. These include strange sensations, sighting shadow people, and even interacting with a young boy who is thought to have drowned on the property many years ago.
At number 10 is Whitney Cummings and the Trans Ghost. Yeah, this one's super weird. Now, Whitney Cummings had this seriously bizarre experience while hanging out with Kesha at a haunted prison. So picture this, Whitney thinking that she's having this heart-to-heart moment with a spirit, all emotional and deep, when bam, it turns out that it wasn't quite Casper that she was talking to. Kesha spilled the beans on this wild incident, mentioning how Whitney was up there, probably shedding a tear or two, thinking that she was consoling with what she thought was a trans ghost. Meanwhile, downstairs, chaos was unfolding. The demon expert they had with them was losing their mind, yelling for Whitney to get out pronto because it wasn't a friendly ghost. It was a sneaky demon up to no good. Just imagine the sheer confusion and the spooky factor of believing that you're having a heartfelt chat with an otherworldly entity only to find out that you're basically in a face-off with a devilish trickster. Kind of story that makes you think twice about haunted prisons. Lesson learned, not everything in the spirit world has good intentions. Talk about an unexpected plot twist in the ghostly department. At number 9 is Demi Lovato. So Demi Lovato's ghost stories are no joke. She once spilled the beans about her Texas home being a ghost hangout. And not just any ghost, but a chatty one named Emily. Back when Demi was merely 3 years old, she was having a full-on conversations with this invisible buddy. I mean, one might call it an imaginary friend, but it gets even weirder after that. You see, she didn't just talk to Emily, she actually saw her lurking around in her closet. Just picture a little ghost playing peekaboo. Just picture a little ghost playing peekaboo. Pretty hair-raising. Now, Demi's not your average celeb, she's all about the supernatural vibe. She's convinced that she's got a direct hotline to the other side. Like, she can walk into a room and instantly sense if something paranormal went down there. I don't know about you, but that definitely gives me goosebumps. And guess what? Demi took her ghost game to the next level with her own TV show, Unidentified with Demi Lovato. She didn't just talk to ghosts on the show, she sang with them too. But on the show, she encountered some ghosts that had some serious beef with men specifically. Can you believe that? Even in the afterlife, they've got preferences. Seems like Demi's got more ghost tales than an old haunted house. The supernatural world must really dig her vibes. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8 is Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne and his brush with the supernatural, you know, he's not just a rocker with a penchant for the extreme, he's practically a legend in the music world. Ozzy was a part of Black Sabbath, the band that basically set the stage for heavy metal. Their songs weren't exactly nursery rhymes, delving deep into spooky, dark themes that left people wide-eyed. Now, even after going solo, Ozzy kept that dark vibe going strong. He crooned about stuff like Mr. Crowley and, well, the song named after the band itself, Black Sabbath. It's like he really embraced that whole spooky scene. Now let's get on to the juicy bit. Ozzy's tales of summoning ghosts and encountering the devil are just mind-boggling. He's not shy about talking about his super spooky experiences. He has shared stories about using a Ouija board to summon a ghost, and even claims to have seen the devil himself just hanging out on the edge of his bed. Now, it's easy to think, come on, Ozzy, really? But whether or not you believe his tales, his life has been anything but ordinary. He's definitely a rock and roll legend, and his whole journey is filled with mystery and darkness. I mean, sure, some say it's all part of his rock and roll persona, but whether it's real or not, adds a layer of mystery to his whole ordeal. Ozzy's life story is like a never-ending crazy train ride through the eerie and bizarre. At number 7 is Lily Collins. Lily Collins had this really intense experience while filming a movie called Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. This film is about Ted Bundy, this seriously infamous dude known for some seriously horrific stuff. Now, while playing her role in the film, Lily actually started having these super spooky encounters. This isn't gonna be your typical ghost story, to say the least. She spilled the beans to The Guardian about waking up at precisely 3:05 a.m. every single night. But she wasn't getting up all fresh and rested. No, she'd jolt to vivid flashes in her mind, like scenes from a serious struggle or something eerie like that. Now, instead of freaking out, she took it in stride. Lily figured out this wild theory that at 3 a.m., the barrier between our world and the spirit world is as thin as it gets. Now, she actually believed that these experiences were the spirits of Ted Bundy's victims coming to show support. Like they were saying, hey, we're here for you and we appreciate you telling our story. How bizarre is that? Talk about a spooky but strangely comforting twist in the middle of filming. At number 6 is Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian, right? I mean, she's practically a household name, but the thing about her journey to fame is that it's like a magnet for whispers and gossip. You see, people can't help but wonder if there's more to her success story. Talk of the town is some believe she might have shaken hands with the devil to get where she is. Now let's rewind to that leaked tape. It was the rocket fuel that launched her into stardom. But you've probably heard the rumors. I mean, critics say that her skyrocketing fame seems a bit too convenient. But let's put a pause on that thought, because success isn't always a deal with the devil, you know? I mean, let's talk strategy, because Kim is like a genius in the world of self-promotion. Reality TV, makeup lines, you name it. She's got the secret sauce to make things work. It's not just luck or dark magic behind her triumphs. She knows what makes the audience tick and plays that tune like a maestro. I mean, sure, devilish rumors might float around, but her success is more about her hard work, her smarts, and understanding what keeps people hooked. It's the real magic behind Kim K's ride to superstardom. And number 5 is Nicki Minaj. You know, Nicki Minaj's journey through the music world has been a roller coaster ride filled with controversies and wild moments. People talk about her like she's got some kind of connection to the supernatural, almost as though she's had a face-to-face encounter with Lucy himself. But let's pump the brakes on a bit, because those ideas are kinda tinfoil hatty. So Nicki, with her bold lyrics and fashion sense, has definitely raised some eyebrows. And then there's her alter ego, Roman Zelensky. Some folks got all spooked, thinking that it's a sign of her being taken over and possessed by some dark force, but really, probably just a creative side she brings out in her music, like an actor taking on different roles in movies. So remember that music video for Only? It caused a stir with its eerie visuals. People went all, oh, she's into satanic stuff, but Nicki explained it as her shaking things up, making a statement. It's like using art to challenge norms and get people thinking. So while some say she's had a close encounter with the devil, it's more about her pushing boundaries as an artist. At number 4 is Vanessa Hudgens. Vanessa Hudgens is the High School Musical star, but she's got some seriously eerie stories to tell. At the ripe age of only 8, she had a bizarre encounter with a duck toy. Yeah, just a duck toy. But here's the kicker. See, that just wasn't a normal duck. Instead of sitting there like a regular old toy, it started following her around her house. Now, most of us would have probably freaked out and shut it out, maybe gave the duck a little football punt, but not Vanessa. Fast forward to her talking on the Kelly Clarkson show, and she's spilling the beans about her paranormal experiences. She's opened up about how she kind of put a lid on those spooky incidences because, let's be real, the unknown can be pretty darn scary. But as she grew older, she realized that maybe there's something special about all this ghostly stuff she's been seeing and hearing. She even spilled the beans about using a spirit box, basically a gadget that ghost hunters use to snoop on spirits' chats. At number 3 is Carlos Santana. At number 3 is Carlos Santana. When we delve into the world of guitar heroes, Carlos Santana's name always pops up. I mean, who can forget his iconic tunes like Black Magic Woman? But you ever heard of the spicy gossip about him supposedly meeting the devil? Yeah, rumor has it that Santana's guitar wizardry doesn't just come from hours of practice. Some folks claim he struck a deal with Lucifer himself for those unreal skills. Now, before we get caught up in the whole supernatural hoopla, take a step back a bit, because Santana himself hasn't confirmed any Faustian pacts. His musical journey traces back to his dedication and love for music. Growing up in Mexico and hustling in San Francisco during the 60s, he blended rock, Latin rhythms, and blues into his own killer sound. Now sure, the rumor mill churns out tales of devilish agreement, but the truth is that Santa credits his success to his spiritual beliefs and a profound connection with the universe. So no need for the devil, just a whole lot of hard work and genuine passion for making awesome music. At number 2 is Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg, the rap maestro we all know and love, has been the talk of some wild rumors, especially when it comes to his supposed rendezvous with the devil. Yeah, allegedly the man who brought us hits like Gin and Juice, Drop It Like It's Hot, is supposedly making deals with the Dark Lord. Sounds like a plot from one of those over-the-top movies. But let's dig into it. See, back in 2012, Snoop went through a name change after a trip to Jamaica. He claimed that it was a spiritual awakening that led to his rebranding. But some folks out there, the conspiracy theorists, connect the dots a bit differently. They see it as a sign of some infernal agreement, a way for Snoop to show his allegiance to the underworld cat figure. And then there's his lyrics. They're not exactly church hymns, am I right? Some things that he raps about and his lifestyle have raised some eyebrows, but Snoop has pushed back on all of these claims. He stood firm, saying that he believes in something higher and has a spiritual side. So while the gossip about Snoop might take headlines, his own stance seems to be that it's all just smoke and mirrors. At number 1 is Damson Idris. When it comes to Hollywood, there's always a bit of mystery swirling around, especially when somebody rockets to fame seemingly out of nowhere. And in this whirlwind of celebrity gossip, Damson Idris is a name that's been causing a stir. This guy from Peckham, London didn't just dip his toes into fame, he cannonballed right in with his breakout role in Snowfall. Playing a young substance dealer in the 80s epidemic was no small feat. But then whispers started. Is he really that good, or is there some dark magic involved? Folks started spreading rumors, thinking that he might have made a deal with the devil to skyrocket his way up the ladder of success, pointing fingers at his charm and acting chops, claiming that there's no way he's that good without supernatural help. But hold your horses, let's remember that hard work can pay off big time. His dedication to his craft is undeniable. The guy's been hustling and refining his acting skills for a while now, and maybe that's just what was behind his rapid rise to success. I mean, sure, devilish rumors spice up the story a bit, but maybe, just maybe, it's all about talent and relentless effort paving his way to stardom.
Starting off this list at our number 10 spot, we have the Witches Sabbath. The Witches Sabbath is a concept in Western European folklore that describes a gathering of witches for a demonic and magical ritual. It was the meeting of the witches. It is said that during the Sabbath, witches would engage in acts of heresy, including devil worship, flesh consumption, and even sexual parties. The event was believed to take place on the night of a full moon, often in remote areas such as mountaintops or crossroads. The concept of the Witches Sabbath gained popularity during the witch hunt era of the late Middle Ages and the early modern period, with many people accused of witchcraft being accused of attending such gatherings. The idea of the Sabbath was used as evidence of the devil's influence on witches and as a justification for the persecution and execution of those accused. In our number 9 spot today, we have potions. Alright, every time I see like the classic folklore depiction of a witch, I always wonder what it is that they're stirring up in that cauldron. It's bubbling, it's boiling, it's steaming. What is it? A potion, of course. Witches may drink a potion as part of a ritual meant to summon the devil or other supernatural entities. The potion may be made from a variety of ingredients, including herbs, animal parts, or even human blood. The purpose of the potion is often to induce a state of altered consciousness or heightened awareness, allowing the witch to communicate with the otherworldly entities they seek to summon. The ritualistic setting for drinking a potion may vary, but often involves a secluded location. You know, for an occult ritual, we need that eerie setting. The witch may be required to perform certain tasks or complete specific rituals before or after drinking the potion, and the concept of using psychoactive substances as part of a ritual or religious practice is found in various real-world traditions throughout history. However, the summoning of the devil is not a common practice. In our number 8 spot today, we have drawing a pentagram. The pentagram is one of the most recognizable symbols when it comes to all things occult, and drawing a pentagram is a ritualistic act commonly used in magical practices as a way to create a protective barrier or to invoke supernatural forces such as the devil himself. The pentagram is a 5-pointed star, often drawn with a circle around it, and each point represents one of the elements: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. The pentagram is believed to have protective properties, and drawing it is often done as a way to banish negative energy or spirits, but in some magical traditions, the pentagram is also used to invoke spirits or deities, with each point representing a different aspect of the entity being invoked. The ritual of drawing a pentagram may involve specific movements, such as walking around the perimeter of the pentagram while reciting an incantation. More on that later. While the use of the pentagram has been associated with witchcraft and the occult in popular culture, it is also used in various other spiritual and religious practices. In our number 7 spot today, we have lighting candles. Candles are often used to create a certain ambiance, a vibe, to symbolize different aspects of the ritual and to invoke spiritual energy or entities. The use of specific colors of candles is believed to have different meanings and may be chosen based on the purpose of the ritual. For example, green candles may be used to attract wealth or abundance, while white candles may be used to represent purity or to invite divine energy. If you want to summon the devil, would you use red? I don't know. In some traditions, candles may also be used to represent the elements, with different colors representing earth, air, fire, and water. The act of lighting candles can also be a way to focus the mind and create a sacred space for the ritual. And by lighting candles, the practitioner may be able to connect with the inner self or the higher spiritual energies and to bring their intentions into focus. So I guess next time you're smelling candles before you buy them, think of what scent the devil might be. I feel like he has some notes of cinnamon and brimstone, coming this fall to a Bath & Body Works works near you. In our number 6 spot today, we have incantations. An incantation is a series of words or phrases that are believed to have a certain power or effect, often in a language that is not commonly spoken, like Latin, for example. The recitation of incantations can be a way to focus the mind and to channel spiritual energy, and it is often accompanied by specific movements or gestures. Or I guess in the case of witches, it could sort of act like a magical spell vibe. In some traditions, the incantation may be sung or chanted in a repetitive manner, creating a hypnotic or trance-like state. The purpose of reciting they're just cantations now. The purpose of reciting incantations can vary widely, from attracting love or prosperity to banishing negative energy or entities, or to summon entities. The use of incantations is often based on the belief that words have a certain power or vibration, and that by speaking certain words, the practitioner can tap into this power and create a desired outcome. Sort of like manifesting, but I guess it's like manifesting the devil. In our number 5 spot today, we have sacrifice. Some depictions of witchcraft involve the sacrifice of animals or humans as part of the ritual. This can be done as a way to appease the devil or to gain favor in exchange for the sacrifice. In reality, the vast majority of practitioners of witchcraft do not engage in animal or human sacrifice, and such practices are widely condemned by mainstream spiritual and religious groups, which feels very important to note. But that's not to say it's never happened before at a terrifying occult ritual. In fictional depictions, the sacrifice of animals or humans is often portrayed as a way to offer something of value to the devil or other demonic entities in exchange for power or favors. The sacrifice may be accompanied by other ritualistic elements, such as the other ones that we've spoken about today. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Ouija board. Ouija boards are a popular divination tool that have been used for over a century to communicate with spirits or entities from the other side. The board consists of letters, numbers, and other symbols, and is often used in conjunction with a planchette, a small device that moves across the board to spell out messages. While Ouija boards are not inherently connected to witchcraft, they have been associated with the practice in pop culture. This association may be due in part to the fact that the boards were originally marketed as a parlor game in the late 19th century, but quickly became associated with the spiritualist movement and other alternative belief systems. In popular culture, witches may use Ouija boards as a means of communicating with the devil or other demonic entities, or to gain insight into the future and other spiritual realms. Just remember, at the end of each Ouija board session, it is imperative to close things and properly say goodbye, or else who knows what might be left in our realm. In our number 3 spot today, we have the special objects. Witches may use specific objects or tools as a part of their ritual. These may include things like crystals, herbs, bones, or other items that are believed to have magical properties or specific energies. The witch may also use ritualistic tools such as a wand or a thame to direct energy or focus their intentions. The use of specific objects and tools is meant to create a certain ambiance or to focus the mind, or may be based on specific traditions or beliefs. Certain demons may have certain objects associated with them that could ease in appeasing them upon summoning, and some other objects might just be used to help assist in the desired outcome. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Pact. In fictional depictions of witchcraft, making a pact with the devil is often portrayed as a way for witches to gain supernatural powers or other favors. The pact may involve the witch offering their soul or performing certain tasks for the devil in exchange for these benefits. The ritualistic setting for making a pact with the devil may vary, but often involves a secluded location such as a dark forest or abandoned building. The witch may be required to perform certain tasks or complete specific rituals as a part of the pact making process, which may involve the use of special objects or incantations. The concept of making a pact with a supernatural entity is found in various mythological and folkloric traditions throughout history. In reality, however, the vast majority of practitioners of witchcraft do not engage in such practices, and such pacts are not a common element of mainstream spiritual or religious groups. It is definitely not recommended to make a deal with the devil, because things are never as good as they may seem at first. There's always a catch with that contract. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have dancing in a circle. In fictional depictions of witchcraft, witchcraft, dancing in a circle is often portrayed as a key element of a ritual meant to summon the devil or other demonic entities. The circle may be drawn on the ground or formed by the witches holding hands, and the dancing may be accompanied by chanting, singing, or the playing of musical instruments. The purpose of the circle dance is often to create a certain energy or atmosphere and to symbolize the unity of the witches in their goal of summoning the devil. The circle may also serve as a protective barrier, keeping the witches safe from any negative energies or entities that may be summoned. Many believe that using movement and rhythm helps with the purpose of summoning demonic entities, and when attempting to summon the ruler of hell himself, you definitely need to bring out all the stops.
And we're starting things off with David Burkowitz, aka the son of Sam. One peculiar aspect of his case was his claim that his neighbor's dog was possessed and instructed him to commit violent acts. In the mid-1970s, Burkowitz carried out a string of shootings. He was eventually arrested in 1977, and during the investigation, he admitted to the shootings and claimed that his neighbor's dog, a black Labrador retriever named Harvey, was possessed by a demon. According to Burkowitz, Harvey commanded him to take the lives of people. Burkowitz later asserted that he had started the fires in the Bronx, attributing this act to the dog's influence as well. In 1978, Burkowitz pleaded guilty to the crimes and was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences in prison. He later renounced his satanic beliefs and became involved in prison ministry, offering counseling and support to other inmates. And at number 9, we have Sean Sellers. He was a self-proclaimed Satanist who claimed to be possessed by a demon named Azaret. In 1985, at the age of 16, Sellers took the lives of his parents, Vonda and Paul, in their Oklahoma home. He later confessed to these acts, as well as having shot a convenience store clerk a year prior who refused to sell him beer. Sellers stated that his involvement in Satanism influenced his actions. According to Sellers, he believed he was possessed by the demon, which drove him to commit the violent acts. And Sellers was eventually arrested, tried, and convicted for the crimes. He was sentenced to death in 1986, and during his time on death row, he became a born-again Christian and renounced his previous involvement in Satanism, but despite his change in beliefs and multiple appeals, Sellers was executed by lethal injection in 1999. Next up is Manuela and Daniel Ruda, two lovers bound together by their passion for violence in the name of the Dark Lord. How romantic. Manuela and Daniel Ruda were a German couple involved in a highly disturbing incident in 2001. They were responsible for the death of Frank Hackert, and their reason for taking their friend's life? Well, according to the couple at the time, they thought he was so funny and would be the perfect court jester for Satan. The Rudas were deeply immersed in occult practices, spending time vacationing in England and Scotland, sleeping in graveyards, and going to devil-worshipping parties. The couple subjected Hackert to hours of violent rituals, which tragically led to his demise. After taking Hackert's life, they stuck his body in a coffin that they used as a coffee table. They attempted to dismember his body, but they were apprehended before they could dispose of the remains. They were actually caught in a gas station, and apparently they were brandishing chainsaws, like waiting for the authorities to arrive. Very insane. In 2002, they were both convicted of the crime, with Daniel receiving a prison sentence and Manuela being committed to a psychiatric institution because of her diminished mental state. She cut her ties with Daniel when he was in prison, though, and he landed himself in court once again years later when he apparently attempted to hire a hitman to take her out. True love at its finest. As insane as all this is, using a coffin for a coffee table, that is actually an awesome idea. I am taking note of that. Nikolai Ogoliaak. This next case happened in 2008 in Russia. It's pretty disturbing. Nikolai was a former choir boy turned Satanist and led a small cult of Satan worshippers. He and a few of his underlings lured 4 teenagers in the local goth scene into the woods about 300 miles northeast of Moscow, where they forced them to drink alcohol before stabbing them 666 times each. After that, they ate parts of their victims' bodies. The group was arrested when various body parts were found in Nikolai's apartment complex. One member was quoted saying, "Satan will help me avoid responsibility. I made many sacrifices to him." Another said, "I tried to turn to God, but it didn't bring me any money. I prayed to Satan and things improved." It didn't improve that much because now you're in prison, but Yeah. Number 6. The Beasts of Satan. The members of the Beasts of Satan were primarily young individuals in the metal scene in Soma, Lombardo, Italy. They shared an interest in Satanism and the occult, and they believed in ritualistic practices influenced by the darker aspects of satanic worship. One night in January of 1998, after hanging out at Midnight Pub listening to heavy metal music, 3 members, Andrea Volpe, Nicola Sapone, and Mario Muccione, lured 2 of their friends out into the woods and took their lives in a ritualistic sacrifice. They buried their bodies in the woods and then danced on their graves, chanting, "Now you're both zombies, try to get out of this hole if you dare." Might have sounded catchier in Italian. The group got away with this initially. Authorities didn't look into the 2 teens' disappearances because they were a couple, and police were like, oh yeah, they probably ran off together. Great policing work. Then in 2004, the group's leader, Andre Volpe, took the life of his ex-girlfriend, believing she knew too much about the incident from 7 years prior. Then he and his buddy buried the body before taking a large amount of drugs, crashing their car into a tree. The 2 were arrested, and during interrogations, everything came out. Next on the list is Ricky Queso. In 1984, Ricky Queso, a teenager from Northport, New York, took the life of his friend Gary Lowers. On June 16, 1984, Queso and a group of friends, who were all part of a group they called the Knights of the Black Circle, lured Lowers to a remote wooded area. There, a confrontation ensued, during which Queso and his accomplices subjected Lowers to a drawn-out beating. Queso apparently tried to force Lowers into praising Satan. Lowers refused, though, repeating that he loved his mother. The entire group was high on psychedelic drugs at the time. Queso would then brag about the incident to his friends days afterwards, claiming that Satan had appeared to him in the form of a black crow. When it cawed, he interpreted it as Satan giving his approval of the attack. This was at the height of the satanic panic in the US, and Queso's fascination with satanic rituals and the occult, and the fact that he was wearing an AC/DC t-shirt when he was arrested, it all became the focal point in the media coverage of the case. And shortly after the incident, Queso was arrested and charged in connection with Lowers' demise. And before he could stand trial, though, he took his own life in his jail cell on July 7th of 84. Number 4, the Ripper Crew. The Ripper Crew was a notorious satanic cult active in Chicago during the 80s, comprising of 4 members: Robert Gett, Edward Spreitzer, and brothers Andrew and Thomas Cocorellis. They carried out a series of heinous crimes, abducting and taking the lives of several women in the area. They followed this twisted version of Satanism, using it as a justification for their violent acts. Their leader, Robin Gett, allegedly believed that offering human sacrifices to Satan, he would then gain supernatural powers and protection. The Ripper Crew targeted young women. They abducted their victims, subjected them to brutal torment, and then took their lives as part of their ritualistic practices. In 82, the police arrested Robin Gett. During his interrogation, he confessed to several crimes and provided information about the cult's activities, and this led to the arrest and conviction of the other members, including Edward Spreitzer and the Cocorellis brothers. But it's essential to, I want to say, their actions aren't really representative of mainstream Satanism. I think that this goes for everyone on this list. In real life, Satanism really is not about promoting violence. Anyway, in 83, Robin Gett was sentenced to 120 years in prison. Edward Spreitzer and Andrew Cocorellis were sentenced to death, with Spreitzer later receiving a life sentence after Illinois temporarily banned the death penalty, and Thomas Cocorellis was actually released from prison in 2019 for some reason. Next on the list, we have Christa Pike. In January 1995, Christa Gale Pike, who was 18 at the time, along with 2 accomplices, Shadola Peterson and Tadariel Ship, Pike's boyfriend, were involved in a gruesome incident that claimed the life of classmate Colleen Slemmer. Pike had a disturbing interest in Satanism and the occult, and carried out the act in a particularly disturbing manner. So it all started when Slemmer seemed to be talking to her boyfriend a little too much for Christa's liking, so she formed a plan with Ship and Peterson to take Slemmer out of the picture. The trio lured Slemmer to a vacant steam plant where they violently attacked her. They beat her for 30 minutes, cut her up, even carved a pentagram into her chest. In 1996, Christa Pike was convicted of her role in the event, and despite her young age, was sentenced to death. She's currently still on death row. Number 2, Richard Ramirez, or as he became known, the Night Stalker, one of the most notorious criminals in American history. Ramirez was heavily influenced by Satanism, and he often left satanic symbols at the scenes of his crimes. He was known to draw pentagrams on the walls and leave occult objects behind. Ramirez believed that he was protected by dark forces and that Satan guided his actions. During 84 and 85, Ramirez took the lives of at least 13 people in Southern California. His victims, ranging in age from 9 to 83, were subjected to brutal attacks, and in some cases, he would also burglarize the people's homes. He would also force many of his victims to profess their love for Satan. Unlike a lot of criminals of his kind who typically have a specific pattern to the types of people they'll victimize, Ramirez was more unpredictable. His victims were almost entirely random. Men, women, young, old, didn't matter to him. Now, the way this all ends is probably the most cathartic I've heard in any notorious criminal case like this. In 1985, Ramirez was chased down by residents in East Los Angeles after they recognized him from news coverage. An angry mob formed and Ramirez was just romped on until police showed up. It's like the ending of Frankenstein or something, only Ramirez actually deserved what he got. He was then arrested, tried, and convicted. He died in 2013 while on death row in San Quentin. Finally, we have Adalfo Constanzo. This guy was a cult leader, a drug trafficker, and he also practiced black magic. Man was just looking at the villain menu, was like, yep, I'll have that. I'll take that. Might as well check that off as well. He was the mastermind behind a criminal organization involved in drug trafficking, and he would take victims' lives in these spooky, dark rituals. He believed that performing human sacrifices would grant him supernatural powers and protect his drug trafficking operations. Cult members followed his twisted beliefs without question, basically the definition of a cult. The cult's rituals often involved human sacrifice. Victims were often abducted or lured and then died in ceremonies aimed at appeasing deities and spirits. Their bodies were dismembered and body parts were used in the rituals. In 1989, Constanzo's criminal activities began to unravel when Mexican authorities discovered the cult's headquarters in Matamoros, Mexico, and there they found evidence of the cult's rituals, including human remains and ritualistic artifacts. There was this big witches type cauldron with a dead black cat and a human brain inside of it. Doesn't seem real. Constanzo and 4 of his followers fled, but were eventually tracked down by the police, and Constanzo didn't want to be taken alive, and so he ordered one of his followers to shoot him, and that was the end of that.
Number 10, The Violinist. It's been long said that successful artists have made a deal with the devil, and this has been going on for hundreds of years. An Italian violinist named Giuseppe Tartini claimed the devil appeared to him in a dream and played for him the most incredible piece of music he had ever heard. Here is how he described the experience. One night in the year 1713, I dreamed I had made a pact with the devil for my soul. Everything went as I wished. My new servant anticipated my every desire. Among other things, I gave him my violin to see if he could play. How great was my astonishment on hearing a sonata so wonderful and so beautiful, played with such great art and intelligence as I had ever even conceived in my boldest flights of fantasy. Upon waking, Giuseppe tried to recreate it, and that became his magnum opus, known as the Devil's Trill Sonata. Number 9, Exorcism Gone Wrong. In 1997, Father Gabriel Amorth conducted his exorcisms in Rome, and he asked for the help of Jesus, and the young man he was dealing with began to curse and spit, and started using English instead of his native Italian. Screaming and howling, the demon burst forth and looked straight at him, drooling saliva from the young man's mouth. Father Gabriel said he returned fire with prayers and other ritual recitations, demanding that the demon reveal its name. He said, "Unclean spirit, whoever you are and all your companions who possess the servant of God, I command you, tell me your name, the day and the hour of your damnation." The man fixed him with a glare, snarled, and said, "I am Lucifer." Father Gabriel was shocked. He did not expect to receive such a terrifying response. The father mostly used prayers as his weapon, reciting verses of liberation from the Roman rite of exorcism. As Father Gabriel continually commanded the demon to leave the house, it eventually left, but my goodness, that sounds absolutely terrifying. Number 8. Witch trials. Sarah Good was one of the first 3 women to be accused of witchcraft in the Salem witch trials, which occurred in 1692 in Massachusetts. On March 25, 1692, Sarah was tried for witchcraft, and when she was brought in, the accusers immediately began to rock back and forth and moan, seemingly in response to Sarah's presence. Later in the trial, one of the accusers fell into a fit. Now, Sarah denied the allegations against her, but another woman on trial admitted to being the devil's servant. She stated that a tall man dressed in all black came to them, demanding they sign their names in a great book. Although initially refusing, she eventually wrote her name after Sarah, and another woman forced her to. When Sarah was allowed the chance to defend herself in front of the 12 jurors in the Salem Village Meeting House, she argued her innocence, proclaiming that the other 2 were the real witches. In the end, however, Sarah was convicted of witchcraft and sentenced to death. So, did she really meet the devil, or was she innocent? Who knows? Number 7. Strayed from the path. This is the testimony of Jennifer Perez, who was brought up in a Christian home. She strayed from that path, got into drugs, died, and was sent to hell. Fortunately, she was given a second chance, but this is her story. She was in the hospital and her spirit woke up, but her body didn't. As a spirit, 2 men dressed in red approached her and told her to come with them. She went to heaven and saw the Lord and 2 angels, Gabriel and Michael. She and Gabriel went through a black door and it was dark and they were falling. The farther they fell, the hotter it was, and she said it smelled like sulfur. They got to the bottom and she realized that she was in hell, seeing people being tortured by various demons. The cries and torture scared her, and then she saw a massive red creature in the middle of it all, just watching everything. She assumed that this was the devil, and it terrified her. After this, she then ascended back to heaven and was asked for a second chance. She then woke up in the hospital, alive, and devoted the rest of her life to God. Number 6. Mom met the devil. A user on Reddit posted this story about the time their mother met the devil. They said, "My mom told me a story of when she met the devil. She was in high school, she had a friend who was dating an older man. He was probably 20 to 30 years older than her, and he gave her a necklace. Not wanting to get caught by her parents, she gave the necklace to my mom. She wore it, and that night when my mom slept, she dreamt of a man. Clean cut and handsome, but disturbingly evil. She said all she knew about the man was that he was pure evil. He came up to her face, eyes locked on her, stone cold and expressionless, reached for her neck and grabbed the necklace from her neck and twirled it in a circle in the air like a witch's pendant. She jolted awake and couldn't feel the necklace, and in a panic she looked all around for the necklace and found it under her pillow in a perfect spiral." Number 5. TikTok doctor. Once, a man who was pronounced dead by his doctor after being injured said that rather than seeing a bright light and the feeling of coming home, he instead saw hell itself and met the devil. A doctor took to TikTok to explain that he encountered a young man in his early 20s who had been stabbed in the heart after being involved in a deal that went wrong. Not willing to let the man die, medical staff took the victim into surgery, kept him from losing too much blood, and treated the wound in his heart. The doctor remembers the man waking up 4 hours later and crying, claiming that he went straight down to hell and looked straight in the eyes of the devil. The man said he could see the doctors working to save his life, and having never prayed before, gave it a try, at which point an angel pulled him back up out of hell. Remembering how clear the man had been, the doctor said it was the most amazing experience because he was legit. I mean, nobody makes up an experience like that. The last I heard, he's completely changed his life, he gave his life to God, and I still to this day, the look in his eyes when he woke up, the terror, I'm absolutely convinced he did meet the devil. Number 4. Working for the devil. Gilles de Rais was originally hailed a hero of France for his role in the 100 Years' War, a time during which he served as a comrade in arms to Joan of Arc, but the nobleman Gilles de Rais lived a secret, gruesome second life where he enjoyed ending the lives of people who couldn't defend themselves. In September 1440, de Rais was arrested after an almost decade-long spree in which he may have ended the lives of of over 140 victims. During his trial, both Derez and several of his servants/accomplices confessed to their evil deeds. Besides ending people's lives, he also admitted to engaging in Satanism by reportedly summoning the devil and his demonic minions. While the nobleman refused to sell his soul, he offered the blood and organs of his victims in exchange for knowledge and power over the dark arts. Number 3. God wanted her to see hell. Josefa Menendez was a young Spanish sister who had a short religious life of great suffering and experienced many revelations throughout her life. More than once she was taken to hell to witness and feel the suffering firsthand. Sister Josefa was reluctant to write on the subject of hell, and did so only to conform to her Lord's wishes. She wrote about her experiences in her journal, and she described it as the greatest torment of hell, namely the soul's inability to love. She wrote, "One of these damned souls cried out, 'This is my torture, that I want to love and cannot. There is nothing left me but hatred and despair. If one of us could so much as make a single act of love, but we cannot, we live on hatred." As mentioned, she went to hell multiple times, but one time she saw the devil. She wrote, "Souls were crying out and the devil answered, 'Insinuate yourselves by including carelessness in them, but keep in the background so that you are not found out. Tempt these others into ambition, into self-interest, to acquiring wealth without working, whether it be lawful or not." That entry was from February 3rd, 1923. She visited hell many times after that, but didn't report on seeing the devil again. And that sounds absolutely terrifying. Number 2. In a coma. Will Carroll is a drummer who has been in the band Death Angel since 2009 and has provided the drum tracks for their last 4 studio albums. After spending nearly 2 weeks in a coma fighting Will revealed that during his battle with the virus, he saw the afterlife, where he would be sent to hell and meet Satan. The illness left him in a critical state where he was put on a ventilator while lying unconscious in a California Pacific Medical Center hospital bed for 12 days before recovering. He said that the devil would punish him for the deadly sin of sloth. The musician said Satan would transform him into a creature similar to that of Star Wars' Jabba the Hutt, and that he would vomit blood until he ultimately had a heart attack. Will told the San Francisco Chronicle that what he went through allowed him to change some of his typical lifestyle habits, including his once heavy alcohol and illegal substance use. "I'm also going to listen to satanic metal though," he joked, but he later admitted that after beating COVID-19, he doesn't think Satan's quite as cool as he used to. And coming up at number 1, The Devil Made Me Do It. Sound familiar? It's because the third Conjuring movie has the same title. This film is inspired by the real events that took place with Arnie Johnson. Ed and Lorraine Warren were helping exorcise a possessed boy named David Glatzel in the early 80s. David's family had seen him being beaten and choked by invisible hands, and that red marks had appeared on his neck afterwards. David had started to growl, hiss, speak in otherworldly voices, and recite passages from the Bible as well. They did many exorcisms on David, and Lorraine said that David levitated, ceased breathing for a time, and even demonstrated the supernatural ability of precognition. During his exorcisms, there was also a rocking chair in the room that would allegedly rock on its own, levitate, and even vanish and reappear. David and Lorraine also claimed to have seen the devil sitting in it. Arnie then coerced one of the demons to possess him while participating in one of David's exorcisms. Afterwards, Arnie's personality changed. He would fall into a trance-like state where he would growl and hallucinate, but later have no memory of it. Then one day, his and his girlfriend's Debbie's landlord was drunk and misbehaving, so Ernie ended his life. The day after the incident, Lorraine Warren informed the Brookfield police that Ernie was possessed when the crime was committed. The case then went on to trial, where Ernie's defense was demonic possession and the devil made me do it. The jury deliberated for 15 hours over 3 days before convicting Ernie of first-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, though he only served 5. Coming in at number 10 is meditation. On April 13th, 2022, Stephanie Hosmeyer replied to the question online that read, "Have you accidentally summoned a demon?" She replied by saying, "Yes, I did. Wow, what a mistake. I think I was just meditating with these stones a friend gave me for watching her dogs for her. They were polished stones in a medicine bag. So I was holding 4 in each hand and kinda just letting my mind wander when I got slammed in the back and saw white stars in my head. I heard demonic laughter and a bunch of banging upstairs. I blew out my candle and fled the house. When I went back, the house seemed okay, but that night I saw shadow crawlers all over the walls and poltergeist activities began. I heard children laughing when my kids were at school. Things came up missing to be found where I already looked. I saw a figure in the hallway so many times I put my hand out to not run into him. And my luck was so bad, it still is. We fled that house in the night and burned it down. Number 9. School summoning. Now, according to legend, one cold night in the early 1600s, a group of schoolboys were naively dabbling in arcane magic when, by some terrible ritual using mere bread and sticks, they summoned Satan himself from the flames of the fireplace. Now, the terrified boys sought desperately to send the Prince of Darkness back to where he had come from, but to no avail. They then tried to hide their mistake, however, realizing this might not go away as easily as their other mistakes, they needed help. The boys hurried for the schoolmaster, old Mr. Hodgson, who already well knew something was awry after his ensorcelled trencher had begun to spin by some necromantic spell. The schoolmaster hurried at once to confront the evil intruder, whom he found smugly awaiting him. Tauntingly, Satan called out to the schoolmaster, "Ye know the bargain, thou hast 3 chances to defeat me in battle of wits, or else thy soul is mine for eternity." Now, the wise schoolmaster challenged his adversary to first count all the blades of grass on the castle croft. In a flash of smoke, the devil hurried away to the banks of the Irwell near Bury Castle and completed the task in less than an hour. The schoolmaster then challenged him to count all the grains of sand on the school brow, but in this too the devil succeeded. For his final task, the undaunted and steady schoolmaster challenged Satan to count all the letters in the parish church's large Bible. After jeering that too would prove easy, Satan made his way to the nearby church, and upon finding the leather-bound book on the pulpit, he heaved open the cover. At once, however, the words on the ancient vellum began to dance and blur before his eyes, and he knew that he had been beaten. Enraged, Satan departed back into the fireplace, and with a deafening crack, a large fissure appeared in the stone. To this day, the devil's stone remains visible and now sits under a clock. Number 8. 2 demons. A Reddit user said they contacted Lilith and Lucifer. When asked what happened, they said you can feel their presence. When I summoned Lilith, she lightly had her energy around my neck, and I felt heavy weight on my body. She whispered to me and I spoke to her, asked my parents' names, and she knew them. Treat Lilith like a mother and don't take her lightly. Lucifer I summoned, and near the end of the summoning, I got past the fear stage where he kept putting the image of a skinwalker in my head, and then I made a deal with him in a white room, and his face was concealed to join the 1006 and to have my demands done after I wrote a letter to him. Number 7. Lasting effects. This Reddit user made a post called "I summoned a demon successfully." They said, "So tonight I was speaking a mantra to Amen for the first time. I did for about 10 minutes. I've always been somewhat of a critic of it all, and nothing happened for the first 2 hours. About an hour ago to writing this, I was watching a video and had one earbud out and one in. I heard a growl with my ear that didn't have an earbud in it. Directly after, I got and still am completely ice cold and have goosebumps. It currently feels like someone is watching me, observing. I've absolutely never felt these kind of things before, just felt almost like a pinch on my left foot, and it is surrounding like there's movement coming from my kitchen. Am I angering it by sharing this? Oh my gosh, writing that question gave me a headache. It's going on and off the pain. It's now the morning after, and I had extremely weird vivid dreams, which I may have like 1 to 2 times a month, and I had around 4 I can recall. The most interesting, while frightening one, considered me and a friend driving somewhere I'd never seen before. We got out of our car along with everyone else for some reason. Suddenly it began raining in one specific spot in the middle of a bunch of trees. Immediately after, a volcano rose up from the ground in the distance and started spewing hellfire everywhere. The last moment I remember was fiery skies masked in smoke. I mean, it really felt like I was in hell. Number 6. Using prayer. This online user shared their story by saying, "I admit that I stupidly tried summoning a demon. Mostly, however, to have fun. I didn't think a demon would answer my call. Oh, and hell they did. Within a matter of months, I was hearing birds talk to me. I thought I was crazy, but I checked in with many doctors, but they couldn't seem to figure it out. As it turns out, after checking with the pastor, we certainly were having demon problems. Dang, and these demons are not easy to get around either. They are tricky and sneaky, and the only way I lived through this was by prayer." Number 5. The Nobleman. Gilles de Rais was originally hailed as a hero of France for his role in the 100 Years' War, a time during which he served as a comrade in arms to Joan of Arc, but the nobleman Gilles de Rais lived a secret and gruesome second life, where he enjoyed torment and ending the lives of people who couldn't defend themselves. In September 1440, de Rais was arrested after an almost decade-long spree, during which he may have ended the lives of over 140 victims. During his trial, both de Rais and several of his servants' accomplices confessed to their evil deeds. Now, besides ending people's lives, he also admitted to engaging in Satanism by repeatedly summoning the devil and his demonic minions. While the nobleman refused to sell his soul, he offered the blood and organs of his victims in exchange for knowledge and power over the dark arts. Number 4. Devil Made Me Do It. Now, this story is more about accidentally getting possessed rather than summoning a demon, but I digress. Ed and Lorraine Warren helped exorcise a possessed boy named David Glatzel in the early 80s. Now, David's family had seen him being beaten and choked by invisible hands, and that red marks had appeared on his neck afterward. David had started to growl, hiss, speak in otherworldly voices, and recite passages from the Bible as well. Now, they did many exorcisms on David, and Lorraine said that David levitated, ceased breathing for a time, and even demonstrated the supernatural ability of precognition. Now, during his exorcisms, there was also a rocking chair in the room that would allegedly rock on its own, levitate, and even vanish and reappear. David and Lorraine also claimed to have seen the devil sitting in it. Now, Arnie Johnson was dating David's sister and was present for the exorcisms. In a desperate attempt to help David, Arnie coerced one of the demons to possess him while participating in David's exorcism. Afterwards, Arnie's personality changed. He would fall into a trance-like state where he would growl and hallucinate, but later have no memory of it. Then one day, after his girlfriend Debbie's landlord was drunk and misbehaving, Ernie ended his life. The day after the incident, Lorraine Warren informed Brookfield police that Ernie was possessed when the crime was committed. The case then went on to trial, where Ernie's defense was demonic possession and the devil made me do it. Now, the jury deliberated for 15 hours over 3 days before convicting Ernie of first-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, though he only served 5. Number 3. The Codex Gigas. The Codex Gigas was published in the early 13th century and is written in Latin. The Codex Gigas is a Bible written in a monastery in Bohemia, modern-day Czech Republic. It is also referred to as the Devil's Bible due to a fully colored portrait of Satan taking up a whole page. And when I say a whole page, I mean a full 36-inch page. Yes, this is the largest illustrated medieval manuscript in the world, with a length of 36 inches, a width of 20 inches, and a total back-to-back thickness of almost 9 inches. Wow. Now, the page next to the illustration contains a full depiction of the kingdom of heaven, and there's lots of stories about this book, most likely stemming from the large portrait of the devil. According to the legend, the Codex was written by Herman the Recluse, a monk who broke his monastic vow and was sentenced to be walled up alive. Now, in order to try to escape his dire fate, he promised to write a book that would glorify the monastery forever, a book that contained the entire knowledge of the universe. Now, Herman the Recluse was given one try to complete the book, and if he hadn't finished it by dawn, the sentence would be executed. Realizing by midnight that the task was impossible, Herman turned to the devil, who helped him finish the book for the price of his soul. Now, some say that Satan's portrait is his own signature, and others believe that Herman drew the portrait himself as a thanks. Number 2. No more summoning. When this user was asked if they've ever summoned a demon, they said, "Have done it, I don't do it anymore." He didn't have a physical body. Most summonings don't include actual physical forms. We had a mental conversation, and I used ghost writing to keep track of the convo. After the ritual, you're usually very drained of energy, and it's easy to forget details, so documenting is always a good choice. He was very polite, friendly, and even bantered with me. After around an hour of talk, I ended the session, and we never had any problems again. I contacted that specific demon one other time before stopping. Life is easier without demons. And coming in at number 1 is a conversation. This online user said, "I spoke to 6 demons over 2 nights. I had no agenda in speaking to these demons. I didn't want to enlist their help with something or even to form a working relationship with them. I just wanted to meet them and interview them. I realized that they are not called demons for nothing. They are chaotic energies who exist to screw things up and various unique ways, and they are tricky. Just talking to them was a bit exhausting. At no point did I feel genuinely threatened, but I did feel unsettled or uncomfortable. If you decide to speak to them, keep your guard up. Don't let yourself say deal as a figure of speech, as one tried to make me do. Watch your words and watch their words too. I started mixing up who was saying what as I was writing the conversation down, which had never happened before, so I realized they were messing with me. I also made a strange Freudian slip, such as almost writing friends hurt each other instead friends trust each other. I noticed when these things happen. I told the spirits, hey, stop doing that, call them out on whatever they try to pull, and don't let them in, don't give them anything.